Trump doesn't need it, and he'll walk away from this war without clearing up the Strait of Hormuz for oil tankers. It's our problem, he says. Trump is sick of countries complaining this war is causing worldwide fuel shortages, financial chaos, and he posted this. All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the US. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait and just take it. You have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. And in his press conference this morning, our time, he doubled down.
We'll be leaving very soon.
Our economies rely upon. But the US has locked their own security up. They've got their own national fuel security, locked away Venezuela before they went anywhere near Iran. So they were pretty sensible about it. But no, I mean, our oil, our fuel crisis in Australia is absolutely because the Strait of Hormuz has been shut by the Iranian terrorist regime. And we should do something about it. And we should have stepped up a long time ago rather than sending one plane and 4 advisors. Michael Costa?
Well, Trump is 100% correct. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, this oil crisis is a function of the fact that we haven't secured our own supplies. And in the face of what I think is one of the most consequential foreign policy decisions that's been made since Ronald Reagan, we're screaming that...
Labor Treasurer. Cameron, we need the oil that Iran, not America, is blocking. We need that oil. America does not. So why should America risk more lives and ships to clear the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, I think the thing is here, Australia, the UK, France should stop talking and start doing, Andrew. I mean, that is the oil that...
Some nuclear weapons, it was arming itself with more missiles than the West could shoot down. But we're hooked on the oil that Iran is blocking. Without that oil, our economy starves. And that's partly because we bought the global warming scare. We restricted oil and gas developments at home. We banned fracking here in many parts of the country. Donald Trump luckily did the opposite. He called the warming scare a hoax. He said, drill, baby, drill. He allowed the fracking that has made the US a net fuel exporter when we have to import 90% of our own fuel, much of it from the Middle East. And that means the US, it can afford to fight for our freedom and safety. We can't. Britain can't. That's the difference. Joining me is the political panel, Cameron Milner, former Chief of Staff to Labor leader Bill Shorten, now Director of GXO Strategies, and Michael Costa, former New South Wales.
And if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the Strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that. What happens to the Strait, we're not going to have anything to do with it.
Enemies are going to say, he broke it and we got to fix it. But Trump's actually called us out for being passengers. Countries like ours, they're not really against destroying this Iranian regime. They do want it gone. They know it kills its own people, funds terrorist armies, works...
we've got problems. He's right. By the way, Andrew, I don't believe that what he said today. I think he's deflecting, and I think he is going to take some action in that region. But he's correct about the principle, and he should make that principle. And people like, we're developing a woke right in our own country, aren't we, with Hasty criticising him. I mean, the fact is you either pay for defending democracy or you sit back and cop everything. And you can complicate that even further by having bad energy policy, which we've done as well.
There's also another thing.
Hello, everyone. This story is getting more dangerous than the headline makes it look. On the surface, the argument is about military success, oil prices, and whether the operation is working. But the real fracture line is sharper than that. The United States may have delivered a major show of force, yet it is still failing the political test at home, straining its alliances abroad, and exposing how little control it really has over the fallout. That matters now because the Strait of Hormuz has reportedly been closed for 4 weeks. Crude is still up, gas prices are rising, and the market is signaling that this is not ending cleanly or quickly. And that alone would be serious. What makes it more serious is that the visible battlefield may not be the main battlefield anymore. The first surprise is the one even supporters seem to admit. If oil is still trading around $100 after weeks of disruption in one of the world's most important ship points, that is far less catastrophic than many expected. That is being read by some as proof that the military blow landed hard, that deterrence still means something, and that the feared chain reaction has not fully arrived. From that angle, the strongest case in favor of the operation is obvious. It looks like force worked. at least tactically. It looks like a force worked, at least tactically. It looks like a force worked, at least tactically. It looks like a threat was hit. Escalation hiskin was contained better than manadal the immediately. Tactical success is not the same thing as strategic stability, and it is definitely not the same thing as public trust. Because of this has been such a clear success, why is the public still so resistant? Why is support lagging while markets remain uneasy and allies are refusing to fall in line? That is the contradiction running through this entire episode. There are two different explanations, and both matter. One view is that this is mainly political. The operation is being filtered through Donald Trump's approval rating, and for many voters, there is no military outcome clean enough to separate the mission from the man. If that is true, then the White House is trapped inside its own domestic credibility problem. Even a successful strike cannot easily overcome the public's pre-existing judgment of the president who ordered it. But the opposing view is more damaging, because it suggests the public is not being irrational at all. It suggests Americans are looking at higher gas prices, looking at the risk of wider war, remembering prior claims that the job had already been done, and asking a simple question. If the threat was supposedly neutralized before, why are we here now? That is not knee-jerk opposition. That is a credibility test. And once a war runs into a credibility problem, every new cost feels larger, every official reassurance feels thinner, and every claim of control starts to sound more fragile than advertised. Then the lens widens, and the next pressure point is not Tehran, it is Europe. It is Europe. European allies have reportedly said no to sending naval forces into the Strait of Hormuz. Some have also refused to let American attacks be launched from their territory. That is not a minor diplomatic annoyance. That is a warning flare. Because when allies hesitate at the point of operational support, they are not just expressing caution. They are signaling distance from the strategy itself. The strongest argument on their side is not hard to understand. From a European perspective, this looks less like collective defense and more like being dragged into a war they did not choose, were not properly consulted on, and may end up paying for anyway through energy shocks, market stress, and regional blowback. Europe watches that oil number for the same reason everyone else does. But it is also watching fertilizer prices, shipping strain, economic spillover into Africa and Asia, and the risk that this spreads through already weakened supply systems. That is the short-term cost. The longer-term cost may be even bigger, because what is now being described as an energy crisis is also becoming a transatlantic crisis. Europe has already been moving toward greater defense independence, partly because of years of uncertainty over whether Washington remains a reliable security anchor. If this war deepens that distrust, then the advantage of decisive American action could come with a strategic disadvantage that lasts much longer than the fighting itself. That is where the public version starts to thin out. A president can claim strength. But if allies start building around American unpredictability instead of under American leadership, then the deeper balance is moving in the wrong direction. And once that starts, it does not stay contained. NATO enters the picture next, and this is where the stakes become genuinely historic. If the alliance is pushed into a confrontation over whether members must support a war they did not see as collective self-defense, then the issue is no longer just Iran. It is the future meaning of the alliance itself. That is the midpoint revelation here. The visible event is a war. The deeper event is a stress test of the Western security order. One side will argue that burden sharing is finally being forced into the open, that Europe is being made to take security seriously, and that years of free riding are ending. There is strength in that argument. But its weakness is just as obvious. Coercing alignment is not the same as building trust. You can pressure allies into higher spending. You cannot easily pressure them into confidence. And without confidence, formal commitments start to look strong on paper and weak in practice. and without confidence. Meanwhile, there is another beneficiary lurking in the background. Any widening rupture between Washington and Europe creates space for rivals. If Vladimir Putin is watching an alliance argue with itself while energy markets tremble and public support wobbles, he does not need to win this crisis outright to gain from it. He only needs the West to keep weakening its own cohesion. That is why this moment matters beyond the immediate war zone. It is not just about whether the strikes were effective. It is about whether effectiveness at the tactical level is masking deterioration at the political and strategic level. Right now, that remains the central unresolved question. Was this a demonstration of restored deterrence, or the beginning of a broader loss of confidence dressed up as strength? The answer is not settled yet. But the next signals will matter more than the last headlines: oil, alliance behavior, public tolerance for costs, and whether the administration can explain not just what it did, but why this had to happen now. Leave your view below, because this is exactly the kind of moment that divides people for real reasons. Keep the debate grounded, watch the next development closely, and subscribe so you do not miss the next shift in this story.